When we picture the ultimate survivor, like the lone figure standing after the universe itself collapses in this fiery cataclysm, we usually imagine, I don't know, some glowing ethereal deity.
Right, or maybe a highly advanced artificial intelligence in some sci-fi epic. We project our own human ideas of power onto survival.
Exactly. We assume that enduring the end of time requires impenetrable armor or just limitless physical strength.
Yeah, we think you have to be unkillable in a very traditional sense.
But what if the ultimate survivor of the cosmos, the one who has literally watched the universe be destroyed and reborn, not once, but countless times, is sitting on a telephone wire outside your window right now, just digging through a discarded food wrapper?
It's quite the image, right? A scavenger bird outlasting the stars.
It's crazy. Today, you are going on a deep dive into the source material surrounding one of the most mind-bending figures in Hindu literature, Kakbhushundi. He's an immortal, time-traveling sage who just happens to be a crow.
And our mission today is to synthesize a truly massive stack of sources for you. We're pulling from ancient epics like the Ramayana and the Yoga Vasista.
Right, plus we've got philosophical teachings from Jagat Guru Rampalji, traditional legends from the times of India, and we're even layering all of that over modern neuroscientific studies on the human brain.
Yeah. The goal is to decode the profound duality of this figure. We want to contrast his role as this deeply devoted, passionate storyteller with his status as a completely detached immortal yogi.
Okay, let's unpack this, because jumping straight into cosmic immortal crow is a bit of a leap. And we need to understand the mechanics of how he actually got there. Let's start with the grounded reality.
Right. Well, before he was a time-traveling bird, he was just a human, and honestly, a surprisingly petty, insecure one at that.
Yeah, reading his backstory was kind of a shock.
Totally. Our sources trace his origins back to a human life in the ancient city of Ayodhya. He was born into the Shudra class, which is the laboring strata of society, and he basically found his entire identity in being an intensely zealous devotee of the deity Shiva.
Except he kind of weaponized his devotion, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He built his whole personality around the idea that his chosen deity, Shiva, was the ultimate power. And because of that, he actively despised the deity Vishnu and anyone who followed Vishnu.
Right, he fell into that classic psychological trap of early spiritual development, thinking that your specific path isn't just the right one, but that everyone else's path is actively evil.
Yeah, and his human guru actually recognized this toxic arrogance. This teacher really tried to soften him up, trying to impart the wisdom that the divine is universal and takes many forms.
And he just wasn't having it.
Not at all. Kakbhushundi rejected the lesson entirely. He viewed any attempt at broadening his perspective as a personal attack.
Which leads to this crazy scene in a temple, right?
Yeah, so this stubbornness culminates in a temple dedicated to Shiva. Kakbhushundi is deep in prayer, and his guru, a man of deep wisdom and kindness, walks into the room. And Kakbhushundi, out of sheer petulant arrogance, just refuses to stand up and acknowledge his teacher.
I was reading this part of the text, and the reaction from Shiva honestly surprised me. You would think the deity he is fiercely worshipping would take his side.
You'd think so, but Shiva is infuriated by this disrespect to a teacher. A celestial voice booms out and condemns Kakbhushundi to live 1,000 lives as a lesser creature, like a snake, suffering in hellish conditions.
Which made me pause. I mean, 1,000 agonizing lives as a snake just for not standing up.
It sounds extreme, yeah.
Right. I see people arguing in comment sections today with 10 times that level of arrogance.
Right.
They care way more about being right and showing off their intellect than actually learning anything. The punishment just seems wildly disproportionate.
Well, the mechanics of curses in these ancient texts are rarely just punitive. They're actually mechanisms for deep structural course correction.
So it's not just a divine temper tantrum.
Exactly. Shiva isn't just throwing a tantrum. By cursing him to live as a snake, a frog, a lesser beast, Shiva is forcing Kakbhushundi to experience the ultimate vulnerability. He's stripping away the human ego that caused the arrogance in the first place.
Okay.
And crucially, because his guru, the very man he insulted, pleads for mercy on his behalf, Shiva moderates the curse. He decrees that after burning through this karmic debt, Kakbhushundi will eventually become a devoted follower of Rama, who is an avatar of Vishnu.
Which is the exact deity he used to violently hate.
Yeah.
That's poetic justice right there.
Precisely.
But that intellectual stubbornness is deeply ingrained, right? Because even after grinding through 1,000 agonizing lives, he still hasn't fully learned his lesson.
Not even close. So he is finally reborn as a Brahmin, a member of the scholarly class. He's now a follower of Rama, fulfilling Shiva's prophecy, and he goes to hear a sermon from a highly respected sage named Lomas.
You would think, after literally being a snake for centuries, he would just sit and listen quietly.
Right. Instead, he initiates a furious theological debate. Sage Lomas is preaching about the concept of Nirguna Brahman.
Wait, can you define that for a second? Nirguna Brahman.
Sure, so this is the understanding of the absolute as formless, infinite, and without any physical attributes or qualities. It's pure, unqualified consciousness.
But Kakbhushundi aggressively pushes back against that. He stubbornly argues for Saguna Brahman, the idea of God, with a specific physical, conceptual form.
Yeah, he demands a deity he can visualize and understand with his human intellect. He completely refuses to accept the sage's broader, more abstract perspective, and he just starts vehemently arguing, interrupting the teaching.
He's once again clinging to his own intellect, imprisoned by his need to be the smartest person in the room.
Exactly. And Sage Lomas, losing his temper at this disruptive arrogance, curses him. He strips away Kakbhushundi's exalted scholarly status entirely, casting him down and cursing him to take the form of a lowly crow.
Which is such a specific and fascinating choice for a curse. Why a scavenging bird?
What's fascinating here is that when you look at the psychological mechanics of it, the crow form is the ultimate ego stripper.
Because they're seen as nuisance animals?
Yeah, crows are traditionally seen as scavengers, picking at the remnants of society. By forcing this highly intellectual, incredibly proud scholar into the body of a crow, the sage permanently removes his human status, his caste, his physical superiority.
Wow. It forces him to realize that true divinity and wisdom have absolutely nothing to do with human intellect or social standing.
Right. And Sage Lomas realizes this almost immediately. The moment the curse leaves his lips, the sage regrets letting his own anger slip.
So he tries to fix it.
Yeah, to balance the scales, Lomas immediately imparts a profound blessing onto the newly transformed crow. He grants him absolute immortality, deep cosmic wisdom, and the unprecedented ability to travel freely through time and space.
Okay, so he's a crow with a bruised ego, but now he has the keys to the cosmos.
Pretty much.
How does he end up a cosmic time traveler? This brings us to a mind-bending shift in the narrative, moving from his physical origins to his experiences with the multiverse and the illusion of reality, which the texts call Maya.
Right, and to set the stage for this, we have to look at Garuda. Garuda is the majestic, terrifying eagle who serves as the literal mount of Lord Vishnu.
The king of birds.
Exactly. Now, Garuda has just witnessed Lord Rama, an avatar of the Supreme, get trapped in a Nagpash, which is a magical snare made of serpents, during this massive battle. This completely shatters Garuda's faith.
I mean, you can see why. He questions how the Supreme Being could possibly be captured by mere snakes.
Yeah, so seeking answers, he goes to Lord Shiva. And Shiva, in a brilliant stroke of irony, tells the mighty king of all birds that he must go learn the truth from a lowly crow.
That is the ultimate lesson in humility for Garuda. And Kakbhushundi just completely dismantles Garuda's understanding of reality, doesn't he?
He really does. The crow casually mentions that because of his immortality, he has sat on his branch and watched the epic Ramayana play out 11 separate times.
11 times.
Yeah.
And the Mahabharata 16 times.
Yep. He isn't just watching history repeat, you know. He is observing parallel dimensions. Sometimes the events happen slightly differently, sometimes the outcomes change.
So these texts were mapping out a multiverse theory thousands of years before modern quantum physics or sci-fi even existed.
Yeah, they describe a cosmos where time isn't a straight, linear arrow pointing from past to future. Time is cyclical, expanding and contracting, repeating with infinite variations.
It's exactly like watching a massively complex simulation reboot over and over again. But honestly, my absolute favorite part of this time-traveling narrative is the chase scene.
Oh, the chase scene is incredible.
Right, so in every cosmic cycle, Kakbhushundi goes to the city of Ayodhya just to watch the child version of Rama play. And one day, the child Rama notices the crow and tries to catch him.
It seems like a completely innocent game of tag, but it carries the weight of the entire universe.
Because Kakbhushundi flies away. He uses his cosmic abilities to fly higher and higher, piercing through the sky, flying all the way to the highest conceivable heaven, Brahmaloka.
But he can't escape.
No. No matter how incredibly fast he flies, no matter how many galaxies he crosses, whatever he looks back over his wing, The child Rama's fingers are always hovering just mere finger breadths away from his tail feathers.
It's like trying to outrun the source code of the simulation you are currently living inside.
That is such a good way to put it.
Yeah, and that realization shatters Kakbhushundi's understanding of physical space.
Right.
He learns, viscerally, that you cannot physically outrun supreme consciousness because it permeates every millimeter of existence.
The physical distance he traveled was just an illusion.
Exactly. And then the illusion deepens terrifyingly. The child Rama catches the crow and simply swallows him whole.
And this is where the psychological horror and wonder of the text really hits. Because inside the child's abdomen, Kakbhushundi doesn't die.
No, he opens his eyes and finds an entire infinite cosmos, millions of blazing suns, moons, parallel universes.
He even sees alternate versions of himself living out their lives in those other universes. It's an endless cosmic mirror hall.
And he is trapped inside this multiverse, residing inside Rama's stomach for 101 kalpas.
Wait, 101 kalpas? We should explain how long that actually is.
Right, so to understand the sheer crushing weight of that time, a single kalpa is measured in billions of human years. He lives a full 101 lifetimes in each of these universes.
That is unfathomable.
He watches stars ignite and burn to ash. He watches grand civilizations rise, build their monuments, and slowly turn to dust over and over again.
Okay, wait. If you've just lived through billions of years of civilizations rising and falling in the span of like a lunch break, your brain would break. You'd be fundamentally disconnected from reality.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because the text says that after experiencing all of this for what feels like an eternity, he finally flies back out of Rama's mouth, and he realizes that in the real world outside, only 48 minutes have passed.
Just 2 garis of time.
I would lose my mind. I wouldn't be able to look at a tree or a rock without knowing it was entirely meaningless. How did he not just go completely insane?
Well, that cognitive dissonance is exactly the point. What he experienced was the ultimate, inescapable demonstration of Maya, the grand illusion of the material world.
It forces him to realize that time and space are not fixed constants.
Exactly. They are entirely relative, mere byproducts of consciousness. This dizzying, terrifying experience was the only way to destroy the very last remnants of his human ignorance.
So it finally cured his arrogance.
Yes. It proves to him that the physical world, the multiverse, your social standing, your arguments, all of it is in a constant state of chaotic flux. The only thing that is eternal, the only thing that actually exists is pure cosmic consciousness, the Atma.
Which completely changes his demeanor. When we look at our other major source, the Yoga Vasista, he isn't insane at all. In fact, he's the embodiment of absolute peace.
Right. He goes by the name Pusunda in this text, born of a crow and divine swans. And the tone of his existence is entirely different here. He is no longer flying around the cosmos in a panic.
He resides on Mount Meru, right?
Yeah, which Hindu cosmology positions as the absolute center, the most stable axis of the universe. Specifically, he lives on a branch of a kalpavriksha, a magical, wish-fulfilling tree.
And that location is highly symbolic.
Very. The wish-fulfilling tree represents a state of mind where all human desires have been resolved and quieted. When the great sage Vasista comes to visit him, he finds this crow sitting perfectly still, completely unbothered by the universe happening around him.
Because nothing can surprise him anymore. I mean, he tells the sage that he has personally witnessed the churning of the cosmic ocean.
All right, he's watched the universe shaking, apocalyptic wars between the Devas and the Asuras. He's seen the literal dissolution of the universe, where all matter is destroyed by cosmic fire and world-ending floods repeating endlessly.
And he just sits quietly on his branch.
He has become the perfect archetype of a Jivan Mukta. This is a deeply important concept in the text.
At Jivan Mukta.
Yeah, a Jivan Mukta is a being who has achieved total, permanent spiritual liberation while still alive in a physical body. He isn't waiting for the release of death to find his peace. He has cultivated it right here in the present moment.
And that state is defined by specific traits, isn't it?
Yes, 3 intersecting traits. Vairagya, which is absolute detachment from outcomes, Santosha, which is profound, unshakable contentment, and Samatva, which is perfect, balanced equanimity.
I was reading the Yoga Vasista notes, and to be honest, I kept getting stuck on the actual physics of this survival.
How so?
Well, sitting on a wish-fulfilling tree and being detached is great philosophy, but when the literal stars are burning out and the cosmos is dissolving into fire, a tree won't save you. There has to be a physical or energetic mechanism keeping his consciousness intact through the apocalypse, but I couldn't crack what it was. I mean, it can't just be magic.
You're totally right to look for the mechanism. The ancient texts do not rely on inexplicable magic here. They attribute his survival through the end of the universe to two specific things.
Okay, what's the first?
The first is Prarabdha, which is the unstoppable momentum of his past karmic destiny. But the second, and far more crucial mechanism, is the intense, deliberate force of his yogic resolve.
What does that actually look like during an apocalypse?
Well, when the universe physically collapses, he doesn't panic or try to fly away. He actively withdraws his life force, shielding his consciousness from physical destruction by entering a state of complete suspended animation.
And this is where the deep dive bridges the gap between ancient mysticism and your actual biology. I was looking at the teachings of Jagatguru Rampalji alongside the modern research from alachana.org, and this is where the philosophy maps directly onto human anatomy.
It's a fascinating connection.
Right, because the yogic discipline that saves him isn't a secret superpower. He explicitly tells the sage that his absolute stability comes entirely from pranayama, the regulation of breath.
Yeah, Bhusunda breaks down the internal mechanics of this practice. He explains that there are two vital energetic forces operating constantly within the body.
Prana and apana.
Exactly. There is prana, which is the vital life force that originates in the heart area and naturally moves upward and outward. And counteracting that is apana, which is the force governing elimination and grounding, moving downward and inward.
And most of us live with these two forces completely out of sync, mirroring our chaotic lives.
Right. But Bhusunda's practice involves consciously controlling the breath to physically bring these two opposing forces together in the abdomen, creating an energetic lock.
So he's literally forcing his internal energy into equilibrium.
Yes. When prana and apana are forced into perfect equilibrium, it naturally produces a physiological state called kumpaka. This is spontaneous breath suspension.
The need to inhale or exhale just vanishes.
And when the breath perfectly stills, the mind is forced to follow suit.
Which is exactly what modern neuroscientific studies are now validating. We are looking at fMRI, EEG scans of advanced practitioners entering these exact states of kumpaka, and the data is staggering.
The texts claimed this practice shielded consciousness, but the scans show it is actually physically restructuring the brain.
I want to get into the specific data point that completely surprised me in the research. We have fMRI data showing that the exact breathing suspension Bhusunda used literally thickens the prefrontal cortex.
That's incredible.
You are inducing neuroplasticity to physically upgrade your brain's hardware. But wait, how is stopping your breath actually doing that?
It comes down to cellular mechanics and the nervous system. When you slow the breath to that extreme degree, you deliberately increase the carbon dioxide tolerance in your bloodstream.
Right, and normally a buildup of CO2 triggers pure panic in the amygdala, right? Your brain just screams at you to breathe.
Exactly. But by consciously maintaining that suspension, you train the brain to remain perfectly calm under immense physiological stress. This sends a massive overriding signal directly through the vagus nerve.
Think of your autonomic nervous system like a car engine. The daily stress of your life slams on the gas pedal. That's your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, pumping cortisol into your blood.
A perfect analogy.
What the fMRI scans show is that balancing prana and apana acts as a manual override. You are physically reaching in, grabbing the vagus nerve, and pulling the handbrake on your own nervous system.
Exactly. You are forcing the body into a profound parasympathetic state, the rest and digest mode. The heart rate plummets, brainwave patterns shift from high-frequency beta waves into slow, rhythmic alpha and theta waves.
So the practitioner enters a heightened state of hyper-awareness coupled with deep physical relaxation.
Yeah, modern neurology is proving that the samatva, the equanimity that Bhusunda describes, is a highly specific, repeatable physiological state triggered by the breath.
So, bringing all of this back to you, listening right now, we aren't trying to survive the literal fiery dissolution of the cosmos like Kakbhushundi. We don't have to worry about the stars exploding tomorrow.
Hopefully not.
But we are constantly trying to survive our own daily cosmic collapse. The relentless stress of a demanding job, the anxiety of a 24-hour news cycle, the constant dopamine-draining ping of notifications, the sheer crushing weight of information overload.
That is our multiverse of chaos.
Exactly. And the biological mechanism to survive that daily chaos is the exact same tool the ancient texts described thousands of years ago. Your breath is the literal physical bridge between your chaotic external environment and your internal state of consciousness.
It is an incredible full-circle moment for this narrative. When we look at the duality of Kakbhushundi, it offers a perfect roadmap.
How so?
On one hand, in the Ramacharitmanas, he is this passionate, enthusiastic storyteller. He engages deeply with the world, he watches the epics play out, he feels the emotion of the narrative, he interacts with the deities.
But simultaneously, in the Yoga Vasista, he's the tranquil, breath-focused philosopher.
Right. He has mastered his internal landscape. He shows us that it is entirely possible to engage deeply with the stories, the people, and the chaos of the world while maintaining an internal fortress of detachment.
You can feel the emotion of the world's story without letting it destroy you.
Exactly.
Because he knows it's all just a story playing out on the grand screen of Maya. And while you may not be a time-traveling, immortal crow perched on Mount Meru, you possess the exact same biological hardware that Kakbhushundi used to find eternal peace.
You have the ability to sit, balance your breath, pull the handbrake on your nervous system, and find absolute stillness amidst the noise.
The tools for liberation are built right into your anatomy. It just depends on what you choose to do with them.
That's a powerful realization.
Which leaves me with a final, lingering thought for you to ponder today. Think about Kakbhushundi's ultimate choice. He had achieved total, permanent liberation. He had mastered the internal mechanics of the breath. He understood the illusion of the multiverse. He was completely and utterly enlightened.
He really was at the pinnacle of spiritual evolution.
Right, and he could have used that power to transcend this physical world entirely, merging into formless energy and leaving all the suffering, the noise, and the lower life forms behind forever.
He had every right to leave.
But he didn't. He chose to stay behind. He actively chose to remain anchored in the physical form of a lowly, scavenging crow perched on a branch, wading through the endless, agonizing cycles of time, all the way to the very end of this current dark age, the Kali Yuga.
And why did he do that?
Just so he could keep telling his story to anyone, even a doubting eagle who needed to hear it. Just so he could help others find the same peace he did. So ask yourself, if you achieved ultimate peace, if you unlocked the secret to perfect serenity and cracked the code of your own mind, would you retreat from this chaotic world forever to enjoy your silence? Or would you, like the immortal crow on the wire, choose to stay behind and help guide the rest of us through the storm?